Hello friends, I hope you are all well. Welcome back, or welcome if you're new. We're going to be working on a super sweet Easter trifold pocket folio today, and I think this is very easy to make, and it has loads of space in here for all of your pictures. There's room for journaling, flip pages, as well as plenty of inserts in this pocket so that you can capture all of those holiday memories. So if that sounds good to you, then stick around and we will make it together. So I mentioned in last week's video that I was going to be looking on Amazon for some Easter themed papers, and I found this one. I absolutely love it. It has a very boho theme to it. The colors are soft and even earthy, and so I think it's very sweet. This collection did come with a nice variety of very specifically themed Easter prints, as well as some that are not. So they're going to work really well together, and then I'm going to get use from the non-Easter prints well beyond the holiday. So this is going to make this stretch much longer. This is a pack of 24, so I think it's a pretty good value. The only thing I would say is that it's 11.8 by 11.8, so not quite the full 12-inch square, but I'm going to work around that. And the other thing that I will mention is that the Easter theme images are a little bit bigger than what I was expecting, but because I don't have a cut apart image sheet, I'm going to use these fussy cut as a way to create my own focal images. So I think that's going to be a great workaround for that. And it was just under 15 for 24 sheets. So it's a pretty good value, and it has a lovely matte finish, and this is going to work great for all the adhesives that we want to use. Here's an example of one of those sheets with those larger images. And so I just cut out one of the bunnies and a couple of the eggs, and I stacked them together to create that kind of image cluster. I attached them on the back to each other so that I could get the placement that I wanted, and that's going to work really well for my project today. And there are plenty more left, so I can continue to use this sheet to get more images. And so we're going to be creating kind of a trifold situation here. I wanted it to be 6 inches square, and I wanted the pages on top to overlap so that you could see some of the other layering behind that first page. And so the problem with that is I didn't have a piece that was exactly long enough, so we're going to have to join a couple of sheets together to get the width that we need for this. But it is going to start out with 65-pound weight cardstock. That way you're going to get some nice crisp edges, and then we're going to bring some additional layers in here to make this work. And so I'm starting with this piece. It is 6 inches high by 12 inches wide. I put my first score in at 2.5, and then at 3, and then at 9 and 9.5. So we're going to get that 6 by 6 back piece, along with a good depth here in the spine for all of the layering that we want to do in the finishing details. So originally I planned to do this with 1/4 inch, and I had all my pieces cut and laid in, and I just thought it was a little too snug for adding additional finishing details. So I went with 1/2 inch, and this is going to work perfectly. So we do need to add those additional pieces, and we're going to stick with the 65-pound weight cardstock for these, and it's going to be 6 inches high by 9 inches wide and scored at 4.5. So those two front pieces are going to be 4.5, and they will overlap each other. And so I have added my double-sided adhesive tape here, and I do want to use that to glue combo. So I'm going to attach these by bringing my base piece together with the page piece right up to where that score line is, and I want to get this positioned pretty square and even, and then I'll just press that into place, and so that is going to add that additional space that we need. Now I can pull the remaining backing off of my double-sided tape here, and then I'll just fold that over to close in that flap. I want to repeat that process for this side as well, remembering those two glues. Maybe it will be easier to go in this direction. Yeah, I think that would be better. So I'm just going to lay that in right along that score line and then flip it over, pull the backing from this side of my tape, and then fold it so that we're enclosing that shorter piece inside of the piece that is folded. Yeah, that worked much better. So now I have this, you see, and it will overlap, and that is exactly what I wanted to do. I'm going to put the back on now. While I don't have so many thick layers, so let's just flip this over and add that. So I'm gonna be using some beautiful sage colored cardstock. I think it goes really nicely with our boho theme. And so the cardstock here is going to be 5 7/8 by 5 7/8. And the pattern paper is 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. And I'm just laying that on here. This is going to finish the back as well as add additional layers for thickness. So we've got that. Now, the next thing I want to add are some additional flip pages for the sides. And so I've got this marked. You see I make these and then I put a Post-it note on there so I won't forget which area it's supposed to go. And I have my cardstock cut here to be 5 7/8 by 8 3/4, and it's scored at 4 3/8. So we're going to get that beautiful cardstock here, and then also the border of our base. And so once again, I'm going to utilize my 2 glue combo. This will be easier this time because we're just going to center it. Have one for this side as well. Put an L on that one so that I would know which side. So now they will open and then open again. I did finish the inside with some of that sweet pattern paper. I am wild about these carrots. I think it is so, so sweet. And so the measurement for this is going to be 5 3/4 by 4 1/4. So we're gonna get all of those nice borders that I mentioned. So when this book is closed, I am going to have a piece here that you see when you open it. And I want to put some more of that sweet little heart pattern from the back on here. So this all is going to coordinate. And so my cardstock is 5 7/8 by 4 3/8. And the pattern paper is 5 3/4 by 4 1/4. Let's add that here. Look how many layers thick that is already. That is going to be so nice and sturdy. So you will see that from the cover. I do want to add some additional patterns for the front of these flip pages, and so I have mine cut the same as the inside of those, and I want to bring that pattern to both sides just so that you will have a nice consistent look. And this is beautiful Easter eggs, but remember they are very stylized, so I think these are absolutely beautiful. And this is going to give you larger pages for your bigger picture. So it's nice to have some of these areas without all the embellishing and layers added. Let's put one over here as well. So now we have those flip pages finished with the pattern paper on the outside and inside as well. And of course we want to add a pocket so that we can tuck in some additional inserts or just some flat keepsakes or mementos. And so I'm going to create a pocket here with the cardstock for the folio, but I'm going to demonstrate with this piece of white cardstock. It's just a little bit easier to see. And so I have this cut to be 7 7/8 high by 6 7/8 of an inch wide. I scored it at 1/2 inch, and then I flipped it over and scored 1/2 inch. So from each side is 1/2 inch in, and then I turned to the long side on the top of the scoreboard and scored it at 2. So this is going to give me a 2-inch pocket. Now you want to come in and remove the top portion here. We've done these pockets a fair few times, so this is pretty standard for us, but I'm just going to clip this out. I cut the one for my folio with my guillotine cutter, so it's nice and straight and even, but if you have a steadier hand than me and some better scissors, you could easily just get that nice finish here. And then also I'm going to cut the very end here off of the pocket. So when I fold this up, you see I'll have that little tab to fold over, and then I would do the same thing for this side as well, and this is going to give me a nice generous pocket. And I have got mine cut like I mentioned with the cardstock that we're using. So I did cut both of those sides off and then both of these ends so that it can reduce a little bit of the bulk for that. You do want to finish the inside of your pocket before you seal it up though. And I'm going to be using the same pattern for the back and the pocket. I don't typically do that, but I have many inserts planned for this, and so I want to just have a neutral background. And so this is going to be 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. So we're going to get the nice border of our pretty cardstock there along with the border from the base, and you see how that just works perfectly. And then we would seal this pocket up, and so you can see I've added my double-sided tape. I want to first close up that pocket, and so I'll pull the backing off and then just press that over. And so now we've created the pocket here. I have more of that double-sided tape added, and I'll remove the backing from that as well. I put a couple of extra strips here because I do have a lot of inserts planned, and so I just want to account for that when we add it so that it will be very secure. And so of course I am going to continue our 2-glue combo. And this will get centered between our 2 inside score lines. Right in between there. So you're going to get that nice border of the white along with the sage green. And of course I do want to finish the front of the pocket. Remember I mentioned that I'm going to use that same pattern on the front and inside the pocket. And this is going to be 1 7/8 by 5 3/4. And that will fit just right on the top. This is a good time to bring in our trim. And so I've just picked a pretty taupey color, and this is going to work really well with those neutral kind of earthy tones from the collection. And I'm just going to tack that down with a little bit of my double-sided tape here. I'll just lay that over the top and then press the ribbon into place. I have the front cut with the same pattern as what will be here on that lower level, and I think it will be easier to open this up flat to continue working on that. And so let's just add a little bit more of our Tombow. And then press that into place right on the front. Had a little bit of offcut from those inside pieces, so I'm just going to add this to the bottom as a layering pattern, but you do not need to do that. There will be a lot of this covered with our additional embellishments, so it is just a little bit of extra detail, but you do what makes you happy. Now I have picked a oval with a scalloped edge for my doily on this, just because I liked how it filled that space better. Remember, we have only 4.5 inches here, so that would be less than the regular card I would be making. And so I just wanted to be aware of that kind of amount of room that I need to fill up. And so I'm just adding this to break up a little bit of that busy paper pattern and give us a little bit of extra detail. And then I also have just a little oval frame that I cut with some nested oval dies, and I chose the one that would work for the outside here. I skipped one and then I used the next one down so that I would get a nice amount of that cardstock showing, and we know that's going to work because that is what we're using for our borders. And so this is the only piece of paper that didn't come from the collection. I really wanted a little bit more neutral for the background, and so this is kind of a buff color and it has just a very light texture, and so this is going to be nice behind our focal image. I did pop that up on a spacer, so let's add that here right in the center, you see, and we're going to get just a little scallop border, and so that's less fussy and intricate than the regular doilies that I use, but I think with this boho theme it works really well. And so here are those images. Remember, I told you that I fussy cut them from that pattern, and then I stack them up so that I know they're going to fit in the space that I want to put them. You see, I attach them on the back, so now I can just press those into place. And because I fussy cut that from the pattern that had a white border, it does really give the impression that it's sort of an ephemera piece. And I do want to finish that off with some flowers here, a couple of chrysanthemums, a white lotus flower, and a little more of that pretty taupey ribbon. That's just going to anchor the bottom here and give us a beautiful detail. Press that into place very well. Now I do have a couple of charms here. Just some little bunny charms to go with our theme, and I like to position those on strings so that I can get them exactly where I want. Let's tie these together, hold them here, and then I know I want to put my button there. I'm getting some strings from my hot glue because it is so cold in this basement right now, y'all. It's about 52 degrees, and that is far too cold for paper crafting in my opinion, but we're gonna make it work for this video. I do want to cover the cut ends of those strings with a button. And that will finish off that detail. Before I add my sequins, I do want to add those inserts. And so you remember that I said I had quite a few, and I was able to utilize the offcuts for this, so I didn't have to cut additional pieces of that pattern paper. The larger ones on the cardstock is 5.5 by 5.5, and the pattern is 5 3/8 by 5 3/8. And this one was just off cuts, so I didn't really measure it. I will say if you have a 12 by 12 collection that you're working with, that insert could be a little bit larger, but this is just what was left over from cutting. And then the cardstock is light enough you could add some of your journaling details on the back or add some additional photos. Plenty of room in here for some additional keepsakes or mementos. So you see those tuck in there pretty well. And that's why I needed that extra bit of space for that, to accommodate that. I also want to be able to add my finishing details. So just need a little extra room there. I'm just going to tie this up now, and then I'll cut the excess ribbon. Have too much extra here, but I do want to have it cut at an angle so that it won't fray. And then of course I do want to add my 3 sequins, so I'll add a couple to the base layer and then one on the raised section, and that will kind of continue our layering and adding of dimension. And I think it's too stuck together, so let's do that. You could also add a little stickles if you wanted to do that. And of course I'm going to add that with my Tombow. So that's going to be it for our project today. We made a trifold with flip pages and a nice generous size pocket. I've got a link in the description for this paper collection if you want to try it out from Amazon. And I think that fussy cut image worked perfectly well so that we could have a focal image. You could easily substitute a printable from my shop if you found one that you liked for that as well. But I think this turned out so sweet. And I just love this boho theme with the softer colors and more nature inspired. So I hope that you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, make sure to comment, like, and hit the subscribe button. Remember to check in the description for links. And as always, I'm wishing you a happy and productive day. And I thank you so much for watching. Bye.